Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Decryption and I hope you are well. In the previous quest board tutorial we added it, so you have two types of quest boards. You have the interactive one you can just come and look at, and then you have the UI one where you interact with it and you can see papers. One of the most common requests was to make this where it actually shows the quest information on it so you know what you're picking. Whether it's on the interactable when you hover over it or the actual UI board when you hover over it, we can have a section to show it. Just like they do in The Witcher, where you have a small section to the side that tells you all the information. So I think this will be a really cool feature to add. So let's get started. So I'm going to split this tutorial into two. The first part I'm going to focus on the interactable version where you walk up and you individually pick the pieces of paper. The second part will be focusing on the widget. So feel free to skip to the chapter that you want for it. So starting with the quest paper one here, the interactable version, there's loads of different ways we can approach this. You could go and make a separate UI and render it in 3D on here. I've never done it before, but that is one way that you could probably go around doing it. I'm going to go for the much easier route and just add a renderable text on top of this, and then we can just populate that with the quest info. I think that'll work really nicely. So I'm going to come to the add here and I'm going to add a text render here. I'm going to make sure it's a child of the plane, and then if we just give it some dummy text so we can actually see it. So we've got, now I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees so you can see the word text, and then I'll rotate it 90 from there just so it's in the right orientation. So we've got -360, 90 and 270. There we go. So I'm going to come and center align this via the horizontal alignment, and I will position it roughly at the top where I want it to be, really. And I'll make sure I'll set the text to something else. So I'll set it to black because black on white text typically is the way things go. And I'll make sure it's not too far out, but it is just in front of it. I'll come and rename this to TR for text render, and I will call it quest title. Now it is a little bit big, let's face it. In the world, if we add our quest paper to this board here, like, it's a little bit big because we can see this in real times now. We don't want it to be that big because our titles are never going to fit on it. If we look at the quests I do have, I don't have a lot of long quests, but Blocked Bridge is probably the longest one I've got named here. So if I come and call it Blocked Bridge, you can see it's already hanging off. So I'm going to come and adjust the world scale just so it looks okay, like so. And I can drag it up like that. If I compile and check it out in the world, you can see when you come up close, you can easily read that in the game. So we could even go a little bit smaller if we really wanted to. But for me, I'm just going to keep it like that for now. And if it comes to it and it's too long, we can either look at automatically scaling it depending on the text size, but then if you do something really, really long, it might look a bit weird for accessibility reasons. But for now, I'm just going to keep it at 8 like that, and then it gives us plenty more room to go the Blocked Bridge like so. So if you just want the title, you can just leave it to this bit, skip to the next bit. But what I'm also going to do is add in the quest description as well. So I don't typically put quest descriptions in, or at least very long ones, but it's something that you can absolutely do in most quest systems, really. This isn't just specific to narrative. So if I come and find my quest, what we're using, and I'm using the Mountain Bandits one, at least in narrative's case, if you click class defaults, you do have a quest description. So we can type a description such as, the port shopkeeper has asked us to remove the bandits that keep raiding his supply. Yeah, something like that will be fine. So I'll come back to here, I'll rename this to Mountain Bandits, then on the description, I'll paste in our long description. Let's take a look. Okay, so it's already too long, but let's see if we can wrap it. And you'll see the one problem with using text renders is you can't wrap them automatically, rather annoyingly. So we're going to have to handle this wrapping ourselves, which is okay. We can do this. It needs to be done. And if you just press Shift Enter, that's how you replicate a new line on it. If I just roughly position this how we know we want it, and I'll set the vertical alignment to text top, it'll go down. It'll be easier to manage. So I can see the remove there is too long. So I'll put that down to the bottom, put that on the same line, then like that. So we can roughly see the amount of characters that we need to split on, because we're going to have to write our own custom functions, but that's completely fine. It's dead easy to do. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, because we need to include the spaces as well. So 20 characters is the top one, and that's the longest one. So I think if we split every 20 characters, then we should come up with a very nice way to split this. Every time it finds a space and we've gone over 20 characters, we'll automatically add a new line to split it down like that. Because then what we've got in the real world is an actual leaflet like so. And this leaflet can be resized as well, and it will retain the font size size. Look, how cool is that? So that is one way we're going to approach it. So how do we actually go about populating our details on here? And it's actually really, really simple. So in the event graph, just like we built before, we do have the event begin play doing nothing, but we already have it getting the quest. Look, what I'm going to do, I'm going to right click and I'm going to do get quest, and I want to get not the interface, but the actual quest variable that's stored on the parent. From here, I'm going to drag off, and because it's a soft reference, we need to async load it like that, and that'll start loading it into memory. Once it's completed, we can then, in narrative's case, we need to actually construct the class into an object. So I'll just type construct object from class. If you're using a different quest system, you may be able to access the quest details straight away. You may have to do it some other way. There may be a generic component you can use to retrieve quest data, or you load it from a data table. There's loads of different ways quest systems work. Just in narrative's case, we just need to construct it like so. For the class, I'm not going to give it that class because it won't work right. Instead, we want to give it the quest class from over here, and we want it here to resolve it. We first wait for it to load in memory, and then we resolve it like so. Normally, you are told to give it a outer reference. I'm going to leave it alone because I want it to clean itself up when this... Now from there, we can then access all our request details. So I can drag off and I can do get quest name. In narrative's case, we've got a function that lets us do it. This is just in case you add any overrides or anything like that, we can get it nicely. And then I just drag in the quest title, drag off and do set text, and then I will plug the text into the value and plug it in like so. That's the title done. Next, let's do the description. So I'll drag the description in, exact same again, set text, connect it up to here, and then finally from the value down here, I'll just do get quest description, and you'll see you've got two. Let's do the function again because quests can have descriptions overridden, and we'll plug it in over to there like. And that's pretty much what we need to do. If I compile and save, just for a test, we'll come and remove both of these texts here, so it's got nothing on it. And actually, instead of removing it, what I am going to do is set it to title and description, just so we actually know it's there or not there. And we'll hit compile and save. You can see it says quest description. Let's delete that off. I will play the game and I'll receive the quest, and let's see what happens. You can see if I come up and talk to the guard, this is how I made my quest come to me. Hey, follow me, I need your help. You can see it has indeed added it. Mounting bandits. The port shopkeeper has asked us to remove the bandits. Okay, so we're almost there. Now we actually need to look at adding the function that we talked about where it trims text to fit the minimum 20 characters. So this in theory should be relatively easy to do, and I'm quite shocked it doesn't exist already, but we can easily look at it. I'm going to come into my functions here. I'm going to add a new function called split long text, and then this will have a single input of the text that we actually need to look at splitting, and this will be a type of text, and then the output will be the new text, so we'll set it to split text. This will be the new version of the text with new lines in it. What I'll also do on split long text input is I'll add a new input variable of characters per line, and I'll set it to a type of integer. And this is going to be, because if you remember we counted how many lines will need to be across here. So we calculated it at 20. So by default, I will come and click on this, open this up, and set the default value to be 20. So we can't permanently set it to 20, because if you have a long word or a word that hangs off just at the end, if we count 20 characters, 20 is right on the edge of keeper there. So we can press enter there, and that one works fine. However, if we count the next one, the 20 is in the middle of a word, and that's not going to make much sense. Nobody really writes like that. Computers do, but we want this to simulate, writing or something like that. You could add a dash to it, of course, and take one off, but I think it's going to make much more sense to simply disregard that word entirely if it goes over 20. So instead, we put that on a new line and just keep this to 16 lines, for example. And then the same for the bandits. Bandits is too long, so we're going to go to the next line like so. And then same again down here, we'll go down like so. And now it looks a lot neater instead of cutting in the middle of the word. So there is actually a relatively easy way we can go about doing this. We don't actually need to count every single character. We just need to count the words, because we don't want to split in the middle of words. If you're happy to split in the middle of words, absolutely just count each character. But what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to split the string on every single space, which should be before every single word almost, except the start. And then I'm going to keep adding the words until we are about to go over 20 characters, which is how much a single line is. And then we will go to the new line. I'm going to jump into the split long text function here, and I'm going to drag off the text and I'm going to convert it to a string, because you can only do this kind of manipulation on a string. It's called string manipulation. And then from here we can drag off and we can do parse into array. Now you might be tempted to drag off and do split, but split is only used for splitting twice in the middle of a text. So you get the left side and the right side. We need to split on every single space, so that's going to be an array of items. So you want to use the parse into array. So I'm going to, at the beginning of the delimiter, put a space just so that we're splitting on the space. We're going to keep call empty strings, it basically returns us no array if we've got no spaces for some reason. And then I'm going to come and loop over this array here. I'm going to connect it back to the beginning. So how do we go about this? So first I'm going to add a variable called current line, and that's going to be a string, and that's going to be all the words we're building up to it. And then I'm also going to add another one called new text, and this new text is going to be our final result containing all of the line. I'm going to drag current line in, and I'm going to get its length. Then we're going to say if the length equals our characters per line, so if we equal exactly 20 characters, and then I'm going to drag off of this and actually do an OR as well. So for the cases where the loop runs and we've added exactly 20 characters and we've come back around, then we're checking, have we equaled exactly 20 characters already, or is the current array element, and we'll get the length of the current word that we're looking at, plus the current line's length, so what we've already got. If that's going to be more than our characters per line, then we'll connect that into the OR. Then we can actually branch off and we can append that word. So if we equal exactly 20 characters before we even check the word, or adding that word is going to push us over 20 characters, then we just want to add the word. I'm going to take the new text, I'm going to set it there, I'll drag it up here, I'll drag off and do an append, and we're adding the current new text to it, but then we're also adding the new line to it. Then I'm going to add the current line to it, and then the final thing, I'm going to click add pin because we're adding a new line to it, and I will press shift enter inside the text box to add a new line. And then we can proceed with adding the current word we're looking at, because if we skip this iteration, we're going to skip an entire word and we don't want to do that. So let's add some comments just so it makes more sense for readability for the future. So if over line limit, or we will be over the line limit, then we want it to go off and sort itself out. Otherwise, if we're not, then it means we can look at adding this into it. So we'll take the current line and we'll add it here. Then I will also drag it in and do a set, because if we've got another word there already, we don't want to remove it. And then I will drag off of here and do an append. But this time, instead of doing a new line between it, I'm actually going to do a space, because we want a space to separate the words. And then I'll add a pin here, and then we want to add in the array element. So what I'm going to do is just actually drag this up and do promote to local variable, and I will choose current word. Now that we've got the current word linked up, it means we don't have to keep dragging back over there to see it. And while we're here, we can also drag it down here just to neaten it up a little bit, like so. And then over here, we get the current line, we add a space, and then we add the current word to it, like that. And then just like we said before, we do actually want to keep the current word, so I'm going to drag this one also down here. We need to set the current line back to blank, like so, because we don't want to keep adding to the same line anymore. Then it'll come down and start populating the line with the word. Otherwise, if it comes back and we are okay, we're not over the limit, we're not going to be over the limit, then it'll just add the word and go to the iteration. So that's looking really good now. So let's just drag all of this out a bit, just so we've got a little bit of space, like so. We can drag this one here so it's with the code it needs to be. And then we're going to drag this return node down here into completed, like that. Now there is one issue we have at the moment. That is, if we come over to here, it's only ever adding current line to new text if we're over the limit, like so. But what if we reach the end of the loop and we've not added the current line to new text yet? We need to do that. I'm just going to copy this append where we add the new line to the text, and I'm going to paste it here. I'm going to remove the last pin because we don't actually need it. And then I'm going to connect this return to this split text here on the return node. It will cast it back to a text, but that's okay because that's what we needed to do anyway. Return final text. So in theory, we can give this a good try now. I'm going to come back to the event graph and I'm going to drag in the split long text. You'll see it wants an exec, but that'll be a bit messy. So I'm just going to click it and click pure. It just means it'll execute all at once. There's no delays. There's nothing we'll be waiting for. And I'll connect the return value into there. My characters per line is 20 because we defaulted it, and I'll add my split text up there. We'll hit compile and save, and let's give it a try. And look at that, ladies and gentlemen. The port shopkeeper has asked us to remove the bandits that keep raiding his supply. There we go. We now have successfully split it up, and it was that easy. And now we can come and interact with this, and it looks like a proper mountain one. The reason it's there automatically is I've just put it there really quickly. So if I just interact with him and say yes, you'll see it adds another proper one there, all rotated and everything, and it will work. How cool is that? So because that was quite in detail, let's just quickly run back over it one more time. So we have a function called split long text where we take the entire text, which is all on one line, we split it on a space and we loop over it. If the current line that we're looking at is equal to the max line we have, which is 20, or our current word that we're about to add to it is going to take us over 20, then we are going to add the current line that we're using to the new text, reset it, and then add the word to the new line. Otherwise, we're just going to come and add the word to the new line anyway. So it's a nice quick way of splitting on spaces so we remain under it. And this is the key part here that stops us going over the 20 characters or the amount you set. And the cool thing about this one is it also scales because it's a font. If I come in and scale this down, you'll see the text will indeed scale down as well. Don't make it too small because otherwise people won't actually be able to see it. Perfect. So that's the interactive quest board done. The next part we're going to look at is actually the UI version. So if I come and open up the quest board backing here, and we have the quest board button here, we basically need to do the same thing, but because this one's a widget, we actually get a little bit more leniency with it. So we have our image here with nothing on it, but because we're in a widget, it's actually really easy to do. I'm going to come to my palette here, and while we've already got the overlay, I'm going to drag in the text just into the bottom of the overlay here. I'll set the color to black so we can actually see the text, and then I will set it to full width like so. I'm going to come and turn the size down to something more like 16, something like that. I'll make the title bold, and I think I will just center align it like so. If we come in, we can call this Mountain Bandits. So that definitely fits. It looks nice. We can add some padding to the top as well. We'll go 20, and then I will make sure to rename it to txt quest title, and I'll tick is variable as well, so we can assign the value. I'll then Control or Command D this and rename it to quest description, and you'll notice that they're currently sitting on top of each other. So I'm actually going to come and click both of them, right click, and I will do wrap with vertical bar, because we want the image to remain behind it so it's overlaid, so we want the text to be underneath each other. I'll come and set the description to something smaller. So firstly, I'll not set it to bold, so I'll set it to regular. The title is bold, you want to see the title, but the description is going to be a lot smaller. I'll set the size to more like 12, and then I will give it a top padding of something like 15. There we go. So it's just nice under it. I'll come and copy the description from here so we can see what it looks like. So you can see it's automatically done. It's stretched it out, which we don't want, but the benefit of using the UI version is text inputs already have a automatic wrap. So we can just tick that, and if we hit compile, we can actually set the wrap text at portion here. If I just keep scaling this up to about 200, 180, something like that, that looks good. There we go. It's shrinking it down. I can hit compile and save, and now that means it'll never go over 200. So now let's actually assign the values of it. So I'm going to go back to the graph, and we don't actually want the click event to do anything just yet. So what I'm going to do is come up here and add a construct event here, which means as soon as this button is spawned, then we need to do the same thing we did on the previous one, which I know some of you have skipped to this one, so welcome. And then we're going to drag out the quest, and I'm going to drag off this and do async load class asset. We're going to load the soft class into memory. Once it's loaded, and then I'm going to drag off the completed and do construct object from class, and I'm going to connect the class to the quest here. Don't use the class here, it's not the correctly parsed one, whereas this will load it. So this async load class asset will load it into memory, and then this will resolve it to the correct version cell. And then from here we can actually set our text now. So I'll drag in the quest title, and I'll drag up and I will say set text, and I'll drag off the return value here and do get quest name, and I'll use the function and I'll connect it up to there like so. We can connect this to the construct quest here. Then we can also drag off the return value and do get quest description, use the function again. Then this time we will drag in the quest description, set text, connect the set text to the description and connect it up to here like so. And now we can hit compile and save. So that part is the paper section of it done. So now when the paper renders here, you can see they've all got the correct text on for the quest that it will have. But part of the UI section was making it look like the Witcher version, where you can hover over them and it will tell you what it is about in bigger writing so you can see it. So what I'm going to do is, we currently have the overlay here with the backing board. I'm going to right click the overlay and I'm going to do wrap with horizontal box, and now our overlay is one side, and then the next side of it we can actually start adding the text that we need. So I'm just going to add an image in to after the horizontal box there, so you can see it's nicely lined up there. I'm then going to come and tick the fill option of the image here. I'm going to right click this one as well, and I'm going to wrap it with an overlay just like we did for the one before, so we can add a separate image on top. And then inside this image I'm going to come and add our first text, so we can put the quest title in nice big letters, put that inside the overlay, and then the quest text I will right click, wrap with, and I will do a vertical box so it goes down properly. Just to reiterate on that, we're using an overlay so we can actually put layer things on top of each other. We've then got the image here, which we're going to stretch to full size like so. That's where we can put a picture of wood or whatever other icons you want to use. I don't have anything yet. And then the vertical box is how we're storing the txt quest name and the txt quest description underneath each other without any issues, just like we did on the button here. I'm going to come back, I'll click both of these, I'll set the text to be black like so. I'll make sure it's center aligned so it looks good. Now let's go and paste in the description and the title so we can actually see what it looks like. So just on this one, you can see it's automatically done that, but that's fine. We'll sort that in a moment, just like we did for this paper here. And we've got Mountain Bandits, the title. So let's make the bottom text wrap again. So we'll come and tick the auto wrap text option. You can see because it's got a fixed size, this button can stretch out. That's why we need to set a minimum. This one will resize to whatever the parent is. We can also do it for the title as well, just to make it look nice. I'll add some padding to both of of these just to split them away from one another. I'll do 10. There you go. Now they've got a little bit of a gap, and then we can even make this one different. I'll set the font size for the title to be bold, and I'll set it to like 20. It doesn't need to be massive. And I'll set the size of the description to 16, and I'll make sure it's regular because it shouldn't be bold. And now we just need to work on actually resizing it and then actually setting the text. So the beautiful part of the way we've generated this is all we really have to do is realign this item here to increase the size of the sidebar there. So if I resize this one just to about maybe there or something, now we've got plenty of space for our notes. So to make this look a bit nicer, I'm gonna come click the vertical box. I'm just gonna add some padding, let's say like 10, maybe 20, just to separate it away. If you've got a spacer, you can also add that in if you want. And I think that's good enough. So as you can see, we have plenty of room to add so much text if you want to your quest description via the UI version. You could even make it bigger if you want. I might do that as well. I'm going to set it to 18, so it's nice and big. Give it some more gap as well. Lots of space, and the vertical box will just keep resizing itself. If you ever expect your text to be so long it should be scrollable, I'd replace the vertical box with a scroll bar. But for me, I don't need it. They've got more than enough space. So the only part we've got to do now is actually updating this text when we hover over these buttons. That again is really easy to do. I'm going to click both of these X boxes here and make sure our tick is variable so we can access them in the code. And then in our graph, on our event construct, we're looping over all the children, getting the button and binding to the click event here. And that's what actually actions it to start the quest. However, what we are actually going to do now is add another event dispatcher to our buttons for hovered. So when we've hovered over it, we can then change the text. So let's go back to our quest board button here and into the graph. We've already added our event dispatcher for on clicked, so I'll add a new one called on hovered. Then when we click our button at the top, if you scroll down, it already has an event called on hovered. I'm going to tap that one, and then I can drag in our new on hovered event dispatcher and connect it here and call call. So we're not actually passing back any of the details yet, and it'll be good if we do that. So I will click on the on hovered event dispatcher. I'll add the plus to add a new input to it, and I will call it quest, and I'll set it to a type of quest, but make sure you set it to the soft fast reference in narrative's case. If you've got your own custom one, feel free to go down whatever route you need to for that. And now you can see it wants the quest. We can drag our quest in and connect it so. And that's all we have to do. Now we can come back to our quest board UI, and we've got bind on click here. So I'll just drag the target from there all the way down here past all of this, and I will do assign on, and you can see our new event dispatcher is there. So let's select that one, connect it up to this one here, connect it up to there, and then now that's all in line. We can grab this new event here, and then we can basically do what we did here again. So I'm going to come across here, and I'll drag it off the quest and do async load class asset like so. Once it's completed, I will then construct the object from a class, and then make sure you don't plug it into the class there because it won't work properly. Drag from the quest into the class like so it resolves it, and drag it down. And then from here we can now do get quest name, and then we can also do get quest description from the one we've hovered over. And now all it is simple as setting the quest name set and the description just the same, and making sure you link all the XX. So we'll set the text of the description, connect it to the description there, and plug it in. And that is pretty much it. If we compile and save now, if I come back to the game, right click here and do play from here. Now if I talk to the guard to add the quest, click I need to follow me, you can see it's added it there. We've not set the text yet, so we'll have to have a look at that. But if we look at the board, you can now see the porter shopkeeper has asked us to remove the bandits, and it's there. But we do have some glitches. Firstly, it took up all the size it needs, so we really should restrict the size of that, which is fine. But also, it defaulted to the quest here, but if we put a different quest on, it'll show the wrong text until we hover over it. So let's actually fix these. So we'll start by going to the quest board UI, and we'll go back to the designer. I'm going to wrap the second overlay with a size box, and a size box lets us basically cap or max the size what it should be. So I'll set the max desired width. Let's set it to 200, and we'll also set the width override to 200 as well. You'll notice it's not really resizing it, so I will tick auto at the top to make it resize, and now we have it pretty much how we need it to be. Let's increase the size a little bit so it looks right. Yeah, we'll do about 400. That looks okay to me. We'll do the same for the max width as well. We'll make sure the vertical box inside of it is set to take up the full space like so it looks correct, and that should fix the scaling issue. The next bug what we had was it was automatically defaulting to the first quest, which before we even hovered over it. So this is an easy fix. If we go back to our button here, on hovered event dispatch here, if we just drag up off this as well and do add custom event, we can just call it trigger hover and click compile and save. Now on our quest board UI, we can manually trigger the hover to make it run the code like it needs to. If we come all the way back to the beginning here, where we loop over all the code, I'm just going to get the quest buttons and all the children. I'll get the first value, and I'm going to cast it it to a quest board button, and then we can connect it up to there. So we know we've already got one. And then from here, I can just drag off and do trigger hover, which should trick it to manually act like it's been hovered over, and it will trick it in order to run this code here. So let's give this another try now. So if I follow this guard who's running away from me and talk to him and say, hey, follow me to activate the quest, you can see when I run back, quest board is there. It's blank at the moment. That's just because we've not applied any effects we did to the other one. Click interact, and ooh, it's gone differently this time. So it's retained the right size, and it has indeedly highlighted the first one, but it's resized it completely wrong. So we need to fix that, but we are on the correct path. So the way to fix the sizing issue, we're just going to jump back to the quest board and tick fill on the actual overlay here to make sure it takes up the maximum size it can on the screen. Now for the final issue where the quest board here wasn't showing the info, it's because construct is running as soon as the widget is available, and unfortunately because we've put the buttons on here there, it's running before it's even been allocated a quest by our code up here there. So what we actually need to do is reverse it. So instead of using construct, I'm actually going to delete this off, and I'm going to add our own custom event called button load. I'm going to hit compile and save, and then back in our quest board UI, after we've allocated it a quest here, I'm then going to drag off of our button here and call our button load. I'm going to connect it up over there. So now we can hit compile and save. If you wanted the buttons that show on here to have the text, just replicate the same effect that this one had. For me, I'm probably just put a text on of some squiggly writing or something, just so it looks more in line with how the Witcher's does, as you can see, where it's squiggly writing until you hover over it. So for me, I'm going to leave it off, but we've already gone through it at the first part of the tutorial. It's really easy to do. So now if we come and talk to the guard who's having a good chinwag with his guards, apparently, yeah, and then we can say follow me. There we go. You can now see the quest board. That one has the text from the beginning of the tutorial. This one is empty, which is fine. Click interact. You can now see it is all correctly done. So just to test that it's working on the hover as well, if we find the guard we keep talking to him, find his dialogue, we'll add multiple quests at once. So on here you can see add quest to quest board. I'm going to come and duplicate this one, and then we will pick a completely different quest, broken bridge. That'll do. Compile and save. Let's just make sure that the broken bridge has a description on it, otherwise it won't. Oh, it is. It's got a description already. Good. And now if we test it again, now both boards should have 2 quests on it, and we should be able to hover over the UI one to see the differences. So now if I talk to the quest guards, here I can say follow me, save. We can see we've got 2. There's a bit of an overlap. I can resize it. The text is definitely working. That looks good. This one here, you can see we can now hover over it and we get the description hidden behind itself. All we need to do is fix the positioning of this, which is relatively easy to do on the widget. Click designer, and we will just drag this off just so it's not so close to X. Now if we compile and save and try it one more time, now you can see if we talk to the guys one final time, we can tell him to follow me, and then the quests will be added. We have those looking really nicely now, and then we interact with the board. You can see we can hover over them and it will tell us exactly what's going off. Add a button here and simply tell it to play the quest, and you have everything set up nice and easy. There we go, ladies and gentlemen, a proper quest board system, nice and easy with 2 different styles. Is there anything else you would like to see on the quest boards? If you find anything you would like to see, please let me know in the comments below. Any issues, please join the Discord or just ask me in the comments below. My name is Decryption, and I will see you next time.